Good evening, everyone. Myself, Dr. Varshita, postgraduate student from the Department of General Surgery, KIMS Hubli. Before I start my case presentation, I would like to thank my mentors, Dr. Goshantappa sir, our HOD, Professor and HOD, for giving me this opportunity, and Dr. Ramesh Hosmani sir, Professor in Unit Chief, Department of General Surgery, for moderating my presentation. I would like to thank Dr. Gabriel sir, Professor and Head, Department of General Surgery, KMC, for moderating today's session. And I would like to thank Shivram sir for giving me this platform. Thank you so much, sir. I'll be starting my presentation. Case presentation on mass per abdomen. 28-year-old female patient hailing from Hubli, a homemaker by occupation, educated up to a bachelor's degree, presented to our hospital with the complaints of mass per abdomen since 1 month. Moving on to the history of presenting illness, patient was apparently all right 1 month back when she noticed a mass in the left upper abdomen. She noticed the mass while she was lying down, initially of size 5 cross 5 centimeter, non-progressive and not associated with pain. Patient also gives history of appreciating movement of the mass with changes in position. There is no history of nausea, vomiting, or hematemesis. There is no history of melena or blood in stools. There is no history of altered bowel habits. There is no history of loss of appetite or loss of weight. There is no history of fever. There is no history of jaundice. And there is no history of hematuria. Moving on to the past history. She is not a known case of diabetes mellitus, hypertension, tuberculosis in the past, or epilepsy. She has history of 2 lower cesarean sections like in the past. Family history, nothing relevant. Menstrual history, she attained menarche at the age of 13 years with regular cycles of 28 to 30 days with moderate flow. Obstetric history, age of marriage was 20 years. Her obstetric score is para 2 and living 2. She's delivered 2 babies through cesarean sections. Personal history, she consumes a mixed diet and has a regular appetite. Sleep is undisturbed. Bowel and bladder habits are regular and no addictive habits. Summary at the end of history, a young female patient with history of a mobile mass in the abdomen, which is non-progressive, involving the left side of the abdomen since 1 month with no other symptoms. Moving on to the general physical examination.
So 1 minute,
yes,
if I can stop you here.
Yes, sir.
So what comes to your mind now? 20-year-old female, 2 LSCS, mass per abdomen 1 month,
Yes,
left upper abdomen.
Yes, sir.
5 into 5. Why did you say 5? She told you 5 into 5?
Yes, sir. She gave the history, sir. Yes, sir. Approximately
5 into 5.
5 centimeter. Yes.
And you said it's non-progressive. And absolutely no positive history other than this, because you're given, all negative history. And then you say patient, feels the movement of the mass.
Yes, sir.
When
Yes,
she turns.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What things come to your mind in a lady like this?
Sir,
Could be the possibilities.
Yes, sir. Based on the history, sir, one thing is that based on the anatomical location, it could be because it is left upper quadrant. One of the differential by default will be splenic any mass, sir, or any renal mass.
Splenic what?
Any splenic mass, sir, or splenomegaly, sir, or splenomegaly. Or a renal mass could be another possibility, sir. But because there is history of mobility of the mass, sir, the other differential, like possibilities could be any masses which can be arising from the mesentery or rarely small bowel could also be a possibility, sir, at this stage.
Okay. Why did you think of splenic mass and renal mass?
Sir, based on the location, sir, mainly anatomical location in the left upper abdomen, spleen, because the most common involved organ in the left upper abdomen will be spleen, sir. So because of that reason, I thought of spleen, sir.
Did you not think of anything else in this lady?
At this stage, because of the mobility history, again, lesions arising from mesentery, small bowel or omentum could also be a possibility, sir.
Momentum. Anything else?
Ovarian can also be a possibility, sir. But
yes,
at this stage, it is like very difficult to assess, sir, with no other.
Why?
Sir?
Why I'm asking?
One, she is a female patient, sir. So ovarian masses should be suspected. She's a young female patient. Any ovarian cyst could be a possibility, but the site again, and it might be moving. It might be a mobile mass, sir, but the anatomical.
This is just a clinical history, isn't it? So patient might say left hypochondrium. Okay, it could be ovarian cyst. How do you know? In a young lady like this, 28-year-old lady.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So one of the possibilities you should keep in mind is ovarian cyst,
Yes, sir.
or ovarian mass rather.
Yes, sir. At this stage.
Purushottam sir, you want to say something?
Yeah, like
Differential diagnosis.
Varshita,
Yes, sir.
like how Dr. Gabriel is mentioning, because the patient is female, and what you are insisting that only left hypochondrium, the patient has appreciated in the left hypochondrium. That doesn't mean that it cannot be ovarian, because what she is appreciating may be top of the tumor which is arising from the pelvis, positive at the history level. So next to spleen, once you said rightly that yes, because the anatomically spleen, yeah, possibility of spleen. But next should be, rather than mesentery and bowel, it should be the ovarian lesion, because the patient is female. And what she has appreciated may be part of the tumor. The one more point which goes in favor of ovarian possibility in this patient is mobility. She said that once she lies down the other side or moves, then it moves accordingly. So that is also a possibility. I want to ask one along with this. Could it be a simple peristalsis, intestinal peristalsis, what she is putting it as mass?
It could be a possibility, sir, peristalsis, but she gives history of mass which is present throughout, sir.
Now, whatever the mass she says, I say it is a peristalsis, what she is appreciating, and that she is putting it as a mass. So how will you rule out, or how will you make this as a less possibility at history level?
At history. Sir, there is no history of pain or any colicky type of pain which might be there with the peristalsis.
Okay. Because invariably, whenever we talk about peristalsis, she should have two things. One, she should have a, what does it mean if there is a peristalsis? What does it mean actually? What does it indicate?
Sir, normally if the patient is appreciating peristalsis like this, sir, one, there could be presence of any obstruction distal to it also.
Distal obstruction. Okay, so she should have a colicky pain. And second, she may be having a obstructive features in the form of vomiting.
Yes.
Okay, pain abdomen and vomiting, which this lady doesn't have.
Yes.
One. Second, any other history which you have asked, which you have presented, rules out possibility of peristalsis.
Sir, there is no changes with food intake, sir. There is no history of vomiting, sir.
No, that we said. Anything else? She has noticed this mobility or movement of the mass in the change in the position of the patient, which may not happen with peristalsis. Okay, change in the position may not happen with peristalsis. Okay, so these 2 points make possibility of peristalsis unlikely in this patient. Okay.
Can it be colonic?
Yes, sir. Because of its look, it can be colonic, sir. But again, presence of mobility is 1 point against the colon, sir. But colon is also a possibility, sir, at this stage.
Can it arise from a sigmoid or redundant sigmoid?
A redundant sigmoid. Yes, sir. Possibility is there, sir. But again, there is no GI complaints for her, sir.
Correct. There is no history suggestive of anything arising from the colon. Okay. Okay. Right.
Varshita, any other?
Addressing 2 questions from Dr. Hari and Dr. Vijay Kamath. Yes. Yes, Dr. Shivram.
Oh, no. Go on, finish off this, Dr. Vijay Kamath. Anything related to food?
No, sir. There is no history of any changes with the food intake, sir.
No, any mass you suspect related to food?
Yes, sir. Gastric masses, gastric outlet obstruction might increase following food intake, sir. One possibility.
No. Say that again. Say that again.
Sir, gastric, if it is a gastric outlet obstruction or any gastric masses.
If it is a gastric outlet obstruction?
A patient might give history of vomiting and appreciating a mass with relation.
Appreciating a mass? No. Why gastric outlet obstruction should come with the mass?
Yeah,
Now,
probably, Gabriel, she means that distended stomach feeling as a mass. Am I right?
Now there's a question here. Can it be a hernia based on history?
Yes, sir, but presence of movement is one point against hernia, sir, and she's not giving any history of reduction of the hernia, sir, with mass.
Probably
Yes,
this question has come because the patient has undergone to LACS, isn't it?
yes,
So
sir.
that's why I think Dr. Prashant is asking this question. Can it be hernia based on this? It cannot be because number one, as you
There's
said,
reduction history, sir.
yes. Okay. Number one, yeah, the patient would have been told that on exertion or on coughing there would have been a swelling. Okay, number one. Number two, it wouldn't move. It wouldn't be a classical history like what you're presented.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
So I think Dr. Vijay Kamath is maybe is thinking about visor or something which can move without any pain or anything. Dr. Vijay Kamath, you are thinking in that line?
Sir, I want to know what is the definition of visible peristalsis?
Right. Varshita?
Yes, sir. Visible peristalsis is the rhythmic movement of the stomach or the bowel on infection. Usually, stomach. The most commonly appreciated peristalsis are from the stomach, which moves from the left to the right side. And which is above the umbilicus mainly, or the colonic peristalsis, which moves from right to the left, which is also above the umbilicus.
It can be any omental cyst, omental mass.
Yes, sir, because it is
You
mobile.
said one of the differential diagnosis. You said it could be from the omentum.
What is wandering spleen? You said splenic mass possible.
Yes, sir. Wandering spleen is a condition, sir, when the spleen, which is usually adhered to the through the multiple ligaments like as renorenal and gastrosplenic ligaments. If there is laxity of the ligaments, or if there is congenital problems with the ligaments, the spleen might be not fixed in the left hypochondrium, and which might be present in the other regions of the abdomen, sir, like in the umbilical region, or in the epigastrium, or left lumbar region as well, sir.
Right. I think that's how you can explain when you said splenic mass, you can say wandering spleen. Otherwise, regular spleen cannot be moving like that.
Yes, yes, yes.
So coming to the differential diagnosis, as Dr. Gurshantapa said, okay, common things first always. Okay.
Yes.
Just because you say the patient says left hypochondrium, don't pin down and say it could be splenic, it would be renal. You might get into trouble because there's a history of the mass moving freely when the patient shifts. So common things first. Okay, it could be ovarian, it could be mesenteric, it could be omental cyst. Okay, then the rest. You understand? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, examination.
General physical examination. Young female patient, moderately built and nourished, conscious, cooperative, well-oriented to time, place, and person. Pulse rate is 84 beats per minute, measured in right radial artery. Blood pressure is 130 by 80 millimeters of mercury, measured in right upper limb. Respiratory rate of 18 cycles per minute, and patient is afebrile. There is no pallor, icterus, clubbing, generalized lymphadenopathy, or pedal edema. The BMI of the patient is 20.8 kg per meter square, and she rates about 100% in Karnofsky's performance scale. Now moving on to the systemic examination, per-abdominal examination on inspection. Abdomen is flat with umbilicus central and inverted. Corresponding quadrants move equally with respiration, with no visible mass on inspection. However, fullness is noted in the left flank region in supine position. Hernial orifices are intact, and there is a horizontal scar in the lower abdomen, which is healed by primary intent, suggesting previous LACS scar. Here is the image on inspection. Here we can see the scar, and in this image, it's difficult in this image, but we were able to appreciate the fullness in the left flank region while examining this patient in this particular position. Moving on to the palpation. In supine position, abdomen is soft and non-tender. A mass of size approximately 7 cross 7 centimeters is palpable in the left lumbar region, extending into the left hypochondrium. The medial, lateral, inferior borders are well made out. Superior border is palpable in the medial half, and it is ill-defined in its lateral half in supine position. The medial border is about 3 centimeters from the midline, laterally extending up to 10 centimeters from the midline. Inferior border is 7 centimeters from the costal margin in the mid-clavicular line. The mass has a smooth, mass is smooth in surface and firm in consistency. It moves with respiration in supine position, and the mass is not palpable bimanually, and it is not ballotable. Here is the examination showing examination. The mass was palpable in the left lumbar region and extending into the left hypochondrium. Next, I would like to mention examination in right lateral position. On putting the patient into right lateral position, the mass falls freely in right lateral position and is palpable in the umbilical region. It crosses the midline and is palpable in the right lumbar region as well. And the mass is mobile across, and there is minimal tenderness present over the mass when the patient is put in right lateral position. Here is a pictorial depiction of the movement of the mass, while here is a video showing the examination in right lateral position. The mass is mobile across and it is crossing the midline. And there is a patient was wincing during this particular examination, indicating tenderness, mild tenderness in right lateral position.
Why do you want to do right lateral position?
Yes, sir. Sir, one thing, sir, patient gave history of movement with the change in position, sir. And second thing, sir, whenever like a splenic mass or splenic mass is a differential, sir, we usually examination in the right lateral position might be needed, sir.
Are you sure when you say that it moves with respiration?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, in supine position, we were able to appreciate the movement with the respiration, sir. At the lower border, we were able to move, appreciate it, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can I play this video, sir? There's one more video showing the movement.
Yeah, continue. Finish your examination. Yeah.
Here is another video showing the movement of the mass when the patient was put back in supine position from right lateral position. Now moving on to the percussion. Liver span is 13 centimeters. There is no free fluid in the abdomen. Mass is dull to percuss. Rest of the quadrants are tympanic. Auscultation, bowel sounds are present. Per rectal examination, there is no growth or there is no melena, and the mucosa is normal. Examination of renal angles. There is no fullness noted in the renal angle. There is no renal angle tenderness, and the renal angle is resonant to percuss. Examination of left supraclavicular lymph nodes. There is no palpable left supraclavicular lymphadenopathy. Rest of the systemic examination, that is CVS, RS, and CNS, were unremarkable. Per vaginal examination, the fornices were free and there is no fullness seen. At this stage, I would like to summarize my case based upon history and examination. Here is the
Varshita, there was a question by Dr. Naz. Splenic notch felt or not?
No, sir, we could not appreciate splenic notch.
Not felt. Okay, right.
Summary of the history. A young female patient with complaints of mass per abdomen since 1 month, non-progressive, with no other complaints, with palpable mass in the left lumbar region. The mass is mobile in all directions. It has a smooth surface, firm in consistency, dull to percuss, and all borders are well made out, and the mass can be pushed from left lumbar region to the right lumbar region across the midline in right lateral position. At this stage, after the summary, I would like to give my differential diagnosis. One of the differential is the mass could be arising from the mesentery, or the mass could be arising from the omentum, or small bowel tumor, or like previously discussed, one of the differential could be a ovarian cyst even at this stage.
Now, why did you look for liver span in this patient? You said liver span is 13 centimeters. Go back to that slide.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Go back to palpation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So you have felt one mass. That's fine.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Was the liver palpable?
No, sir. No, sir. There is no hepatomegaly.
Yeah. So there was no hepatomegaly. Was the spleen palpable?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. Were there any other masses palpable?
No, sir. There are no other masses palpable.
Any lymph nodal masses palpable?
No, sir. No, sir. We could not.
That you have to mention. You have not made a mention here. See, you have given only the positive finding, right?
Yes, sir.
Soft non-tender is fine. Then you have described the mass. Good.
Yes.
And after that, you have to also mention that there's no hepatomegaly. Okay. There's no splenomegaly. There are no other masses palpable.
Yes.
Okay. That is important. Okay. Go to the next slide. I'm still not convinced about this mass moves with respiration. I don't know. I have not seen the patient, so I cannot really comment on it. Dr. Gurushathappa will be able to.
I think she has mentioned it has got different findings in different position. When the patient was in supine to when she started examining the patient, that time the mass was in the left lumbar where upper border was not made out or partly it is made out. That time it was moving with the respiration.
Okay.
But once, yeah, in that position. But once in the lateral position, then everything, all the findings were different. All the findings, because all the borders of the mass were felt and it is moving across and all around the abdomen.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah, go to the next slide, please.
Yes.
Now, for the benefit of first-year students, Varshita, can you tell when the mass is mobile, moves with respiration, what is the significance, and how do you explain?
Yes, sir. Whenever an abdominal mass moves with the respiration, sir, it usually indicates that the mass could be arising from an organ which is attached to the diaphragm, sir.
Not attached, in relation.
In relation to the
in relation, or just beneath the
diaphragm. Yes.
No, beneath the diaphragm. Okay. Yes. Right. So when the diaphragm moves, the mass also moves down.
Moves the respiration.
Yes. Right. Okay.
Carry on.
Right. Go to the next slide.
Yes.
Next.
Yes, sir.
Next slide. Next slide. Yeah.
Yes.
Next.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Varshita.
Yes, sir.
Why did you examine the renal angle in this case?
Sir, at the level of palpation in supine position, sir, it was moving with respiration, sir, and the mass was primarily felt in the left lumbar region, sir. So at that particular point in supine position, renal mass was also a possibility, sir. So however, it was not palatable or not bimanually palpable, sir. Still, to rule out any renal mass, I wanted to examine the renal angle, sir.
What are the other points in clinical examination in this case, other than palatability and bimanual palpation, which are against for a renal mass?
Yes, sir. One is the mobility of the mass, sir. Mainly, it is mobility, sir. Once the patient is put in lateral position, it crosses the midline, sir. Usually, renal masses do not cross the midline, sir. So that is one strong point against the renal mass, sir.
You tell us this one point of clinical examination, that is mobility of the mass all around, across the midline or all around inside the abdomen. Which are the organs in the abdomen which makes unlikely for the origin of this mass? Unlikely.
Yes, sir. One is a spleen, sir. Next is a renal mass, sir. Then a colonic mass. These are unlikely, sir, because it is mobile all across, sir.
I don't know. I think Dr. Gabriel will immediately ask you now. All three which you have chosen now, which
sir.
I was asking for unlikely, you have
Yes.
chosen all three can be explained except the renal. Dr. Shura mentioned, no, for the spleen, if it is a wandering spleen,
Wandering.
you can explain the mobility. Okay,
And
you can explain.
pancreatic
If it
mass.
is a colonic, if it is arising from the transverse colon, still mobility can be explained for a colonic mass, transverse colon. So which are those organs which becomes unlikely for this case with this finding of mobility? Important
Pancreas.
organ where you can,
Pancreas is unlikely.
pancreatic disease, pancreatic masses becomes very unlikely because it's a retroperitoneal structure, and pancreatic, the masses arising from the pancreas cannot be so much mobile inside the abdomen. Okay.
Yes.
Fine.
There are some questions in the question box, chat box.
Yes.
Dr. Gurshantappa, you want to, anyway, you have explained.
So Dr. Narayan asked differential diagnosis, why not pancreatic body mass? I think that we have answered now.
Yeah.
Dr. Naz asked, pseudocyst pancreas, could it be a possibility?
Yes,
Again, mobility, I think.
is against.
Yeah, because that is the, the startling thing is the mobility of the mass. Whenever the patient moves, the mass is moving. Okay, so putting all these things together, what is your differential diagnosis? Can you tell us the differential diagnosis again?
One, it could be arising from the mesentery, sir. Mesenteric masses, they could be either mesenteric cysts or a mesenteric lymph nodal mass, or an omental mass, sir. Omental mass, again, it could be omental cysts or at this stage, omental lymph nodal mass, or rarely a omental tumors, benign tumors can also be a possibility, sir. Other than this, a small bowel tumor is also a possibility, sir, because again, it is mobile in all directions, sir.
Right. Now you said mesenteric lymph nodes or mesenteric cysts, which would be more likely?
Mesenteric cysts, sir.
Yes, because in the examination you already said, okay, it is the smooth, surface is smooth, okay, all those things you have said. So that goes in favor of a mesenteric cyst. Okay, fine. Right, okay.
Yes, sir.
There is one more question.
Yes.
Dr. Ajit, should the Traubus space percussion be done in this case? What is that?
No.
What is Traubus space?
Traubus space is the it is the Traubus space.
Top space. What is top space?
Props.
Left. It is the region between the left lobe of the lung and the left. Yeah.
Dr. Ajit, you have something in mind? Please unmute and talk, no problem. Dr. Ajit.
Good evening, sir. Sir, drop space is the area from sixth rib to the coastal margin below, superiorly sixth rib, inferiorly coastal margin, and laterally the anterior axillary line. So if it is splenomegaly is there, then that part will be usually resonant because of stomach. But if there is splenomegaly, to rule out splenomegaly, I was asking, sir, it was my question, whether should we percuss that and should we note it in the findings to rule out splenomegaly? I wanted to ask Guru Shantappa, sir.
Yeah, Ajit, here the point is the mass is mobile in that particular position. All the borders are made out and it can be moved across, and it is not moving with the respiration with these findings. So there is no question of thinking in terms of a spleen with these clinical findings. So once you are not thinking in terms of a splenic mass, probably this getting this dull note on percussion, the question may not come. And second, for correction, drop space, lateral limit is mid-axillary line, because the spleen 6, 7, 8, it goes little lateral. So the posterior limit of drop space is mid-axillary line, not anterior axillary line. Mid-axillary, 6th rib, costal margin. It becomes a triangular space. Whenever the students have been asked to describe this space, don't take lower border of the lung for for marking. Because whenever we ask about surface marking, you have to take such a structure which is clinically easily accessible, so that you will be able to draw or mark in a living human being or on a anatomical areas. Okay, so don't take lower border of the lung, take sixth rib, mid-axillary, costal margin, becomes a triangle. So that is a trough space, maybe dull tubercus whenever spleen is enlarged.
Yeah, Nikhil has asked a question, but mesenteric cyst doesn't move with respiration. Can it still be a differential? Nikhil, as we said, see, Dr. Kurishantappa has seen this patient, and that's what he said. When the patient is in supine position, the cyst is so mobile that it goes into the left hypochondrium. So when the patient breathes, it moves up and down. That's what he was saying. Okay, so basically it depends upon the position of the cyst.
Position of the patient, correct.
So that is why this is a differential. And the classical feature is that, whenever the patient turns, it falls forward, it falls onto the left side, it falls on the right side. So that is why, we are thinking in terms of a mesenteric cyst. Okay.
Varshita,
What is the mesenteric attachment?
Yes, sir.
Varshita?
Yes, sir. Mesenteric attachment, sir. It starts from the left side of the L2 vertebra, sir, extending to the right iliac fossa and terminates in front of the sacroiliac joint.
Which sacroiliac joint?
On the right side, sir. On the right side.
Yeah, left side of the body of the, be very specific, okay? See, it superiorly, it arises from the posterior abdominal wall. Posterior abdominal wall, and it's an oblique line, okay? That's important, oblique line running from the body of the left side of the body of the L2 vertebra, okay? And extending up to the right sacroiliac joint. That is the attachment to the mesentery. Okay, right, fine. So you have this differential diagnosis in mind. How will you proceed? Anything else, sir, you want to ask?
Before mentioning mesenteric mass is a big entity. So any particular disease you are thinking in terms of what exactly you mean mesenteric mass? Possibilities?
Yes. First, I would like to think of a mesenteric cyst, sir. One thing, sir.
Oh.
Or a mesenteric lymph nodal mass could also be a possibility, sir. But mesenteric cysts are more common as compared to the lymph nodal mass, sir.
Is it?
Or
you have something to mention in the form of incidence, how far we get mesenteric cyst and how far we see mesenteric lymph node mass. Okay, if you take a mesenteric mass, lymph node mass is more common than mesenteric cyst. Okay, mesenteric cyst usually it comes in the lower abdominal, umbilical and lower abdominal areas.
Or in the iliac region, yes.
Yeah, umbilical and lower abdomen. Okay, if you think in terms of omental mass, what are the possibilities?
Sir, again, omental cyst could be a possibility, sir. Or omental benign tumors of the omentum are also a possibility, sir. Because she does not have any other features, benign tumors of the omentum is one of the possibilities, sir. Could be arising from like they could usually the.
At this point, I think you should stop to omental cyst, only omental cyst, omental. Okay, if I'm thinking in terms of tuberculosis of the abdomen and involvement of this omentum and giving this picture, is it a possibility?
Yes, sir. It is still a possibility, sir. In cases of omental tuberculosis, rarely there can be clumped up bowel as well as the omentum forming a mass, sir, which will again be like mobile in all directions, sir. It is a possibility, sir. Caked up omentum with the bowel masses forming a mass with the bowel loops.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't mix up the bowel mass and the caked up omentum. Okay. So they are two different entities, wherein there are tubercles within the omentum and that is shrunken because of the chronic fibrous process in case of tuberculosis forms a mass, which typically felt in the epigastrium as a transversely placed mass. May be mobile, may not be mobile because it's an inflammatory process. Mobility may not be like this, what you have elicited here in this case, because it's an inflammatory process, what we are talking about. The second one, bowel mass secondary to tuberculosis is very unlikely because patient doesn't have any GI symptomatology, one, and it will not be so much freely mobile like this if it is a bowel mass.
Bowel, yes.
Okay. Sir, is it right, sir? Gabriel, sir, and Shura?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Where do you get rolled up momentum?
Rolled up momentum, sir. One in tuberculosis is a possibility, sir.
Yes.
Or rolled up momentum. Or following any peritonitis also rolled up momentum is a possibility, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
proceed. How will you proceed with the case now? How will you
No.
proceed now?
What will you do now? Yes. Okay.
Varshita, there were two more questions. One is Dr. Bhaskaran is asking whether it can be secondary mesothelioma and what is wandering fibroid.
Yes, sir. Mesothelioma again is a possibility, sir, in case of an omental mass. But again, it is a highly malignant tumor, sir. There are no other like complaints of the patient, sir. But it is a possibility, sir.
Young patient. Okay.
And it is young patients. Sir. And like a wandering fibroid is a subserosal fibroid with a long, like which is pedunculated, sir. Wandering
Right.
fibroid.
Right. Go on.
Yes, sir. Sir, with this differential diagnosis, I would like to first do routine blood investigations, including complete hemogram, renal and liver function test. Following that, I would like to do an ultrasound abdomen of the patient, sir. Sir, it has been done. Can I proceed and show that, sir?
Before you show us the report, what you want to know from ultrasound? What you would like to know?
Yes, sir. One, sir, from the ultrasound, we would like to know, like, apart from the features like size of the mass and size of the mass, we are mainly trying to identify the organ of origin, sir, mainly. And if there is if there is internal vasculature and the consistency, mainly the like whether it is fluid filled or it is whether it is fluid filled or a solid mass, sir, mainly.
No, don't get confused and confuse.
No,
others
don't mix
also.
up. Don't mix up. Yeah.
Okay, when I am asking about role of sonography in this case, so you should tell the site of origin, from where it is origin, and nature of the swelling.
Nature.
Not the consistency. Consistency is not the term for the sonographical findings. So nature. What is the nature of
Consistency is the palpatory finding. Okay, remember that. It's a clinical examination. Consistency. So ultrasound is done. First is the site of origin. Okay, the organ of origin rather. Okay, number one. Number two. Yes, number two.
Number two is again the nature of the swelling.
Yeah, whether it is solid or cystic. Yes. Number three.
And to rule out if there is any other pathology as well.
Extent. Okay. Number four. Whether it is involving any. Yeah. And number five. Are there any other?
This, to rule out any other pathology, sir. Any other swellings which are there. Which
yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Gabriel, let her show the report, sonography films and the report.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, fine. Please. Yeah, continue.
UHG abdomen and pelvis. There is a well-defined intraperitoneal hypoechoic solid lesion measuring about 6 × 5 centimeters, noted in the left hypochondriac region adjacent to the tail of pancreas, with mild vascularity noted within the Doppler study. Impression, it is a solid tumor likely to be arising from a small bowel as per ultrasonography. Here we can see the hypoechoic solid lesion, ultrasound image of the same.
Okay. With this ultrasound report, what are the possibilities you are thinking in terms of?
Yes, sir. One of the possibilities with this is that a solid tumor, mainly from the small bowel, could be a possibility, sir, at this stage.
What is that?
Gist, sir. Gastrointestinal stromal tumor, sir. Gist, sir. Gist is a possibility, sir. And any other benign tumors, sir, of the small.
Now they said. Yes. Arising adjacent to the tail of the pancreas. Does that mean the tail of pancreas is normal, or do you think the tail of pancreas is involved?
According to the UHG, they just told it is adjacent to the tail of the pancreas, sir. They did not mention anything beyond that, sir. So there could be anything arising from the tail of pancreas, sir, but again, unlikely. With the mobility of the clinical examination, it is unlikely to be again arising from the tail of pancreas.
If you think it is arising from the tail of the pancreas with a solid nature like this, what are the possibilities?
Yes, sir. From the tail of pancreas, if there is any solid mass arising from this, it could be tumors of the pancreas, sir. Mainly cystadenoma could be a possibility, sir, or any other adenomas of the pancreas, sir, mainly.
Benign tumors.
Benign tumors of the pancreas.
Okay. Oh, it is not a true cystic. It cannot be a true cystic neoplasm because sonologically it is a solid lesion.
Solid.
It is solid tumor.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What next will you do?
Any other benign tumor before Gabriel, sir? Before, like, what is other benign small bowel tumors you can think in terms of after this sonography report?
Yes, sir.
Other than just?
Yes, sir. Adenomas, sir. Adenomas are a possibility, sir. Small bowel adenomas. Or leiomyomas are also a possibility.
Leiomyomas. Solid nature involving the wall. Leiomyoma. Which is the commonest GI tract where leiomyomas are common? Commonest site?
Esophagus.
Yeah, commonest site is esophagus. Leiomyomas, benign tumors. Okay. So what you want to do after this?
After this, I would like to do further imaging, sir. I would like to ask for a CCT abdomen pelvis, sir, for further evaluation. Because this is still inconclusive, sir. I want to go ahead and get a CCT abdomen done, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Was it done?
Yes, sir. It is done, sir. Can I present it, sir?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. This is the plain radiograph. Here we can see. Here we are able to appreciate the tumor. This is a plain film. And here are the contrast enhanced. Here we can see the mass again. I have a video of the same, which I want to. This is again a plain CT. Here we can see the mass. Here are the contrast films.
Read the CT. Tell us. Don't say this is the mass, this is the mass. Read the CT and tell us what exactly it is.
I want to particularly
go slow. Cut by cut, you tell us what you see.
Yes.
Okay, contrast CT. Okay.
These are the contrast enhanced CT, sir. Here we can see the mass which is located in the left side of the abdomen, sir. Here particularly, I will want to pause and explain it, sir.
And tell the other things also, liver, spleen.
Yes, sir. In this particular film, I want to explain that here is the mass which is seen, and this is again a contrast enhanced. Here we can see the spleen is well away from the mass, ruling out spleen to be another organ of involvement. It is also away from the kidney. There is a clear cleavage line seen. Also, it is also clearly away, and there is a cleavage line seen between the tail of pancreas and the mass. So ruling out kidney, spleen, and tail of pancreas to be the origin.
See, you cannot come to a conclusion by seeing only one cut.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, you have to run through, and then you have to show us whether it is infiltrating or involving any other structure.
Yes, sir.
It's like an IVP. See, if anybody gives you an intravenous pyelogram, with one film you cannot. You need to have multiple films. It's like that. Okay, so run through the films and tell us what it is.
Yes, sir. Yes. Here we can see the liver. Liver appears normal, and the gastric shadow, again that appears normal. Here also we can see the spleen. There is no mass arising from that. And the kidneys. Kidneys also appear normal, and pancreas also appear normal, indicating the mass is away from these structures.
When you said pancreas is normal, you were already in the pelvis.
Yes. Sorry.
No. She showed. By that time, she was showing it. She was already into the pelvis.
Okay. Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah,
Fine.
that's in a
Fine.
lighter vein. Huh? That's in a
Yeah,
lighter
yeah,
vein.
fine,
Don't
fine,
worry.
fine.
Yes, yes, yeah. See, now you can see, right?
Yes, sir.
You
Here
can
in this film,
you can see the
yes.
splenic. Yes, you
Yes.
can see the splenic pedicle. You can see the splenic artery. Okay. Yes. Okay, and you can also see the tumor there. Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir. Tumor here. Yes.
Yes. Go down now and tell us whether it's okay. Infiltrating. What was the report?
Yes, report, sir. Yes, sir. Impression was a well-defined, homogeneously enhancing solid mass noted in the left hypochondrium, measuring about 6 into 6 into 6 centimeters, in close contact with the surrounding jejunal loops. There is no evidence of cystic areas or calcification noted within. They gave likely to be a gastrointestinal stromal tumor, sir.
Arising from?
It is in close contact with the surrounding jejunal loops. They still had like ambiguity, sir, whether it is arising from the mesentery or the jejunum, sir. Both of them were their differential, sir. But again, in the end, they gave it could be gastrointestinal stromal tumors.
Did they say whether it was luminal or extraluminal? Did they mention that?
It was extraluminal.
Extraluminal. Okay.
If you were thinking, because you justified Dr. Shivaram's question, that they were in an ambiguity, you have used a very nice word. They were in an ambiguity whether it is arising from the intestinal wall or the mesentery. If you have this ambiguity as a treating clinician, still will this GIST is a possibility?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How?
This is a possibility, sir. Most commonly, this arises from the gastrointestinal tract, sir. But there is also an entity like extra gastrointestinal GIST, sir, which could be arising from the mesentery or the omentum, sir. The incidence is low, but it is a possibility, sir. There are
Fine. Fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Fine. Right. Now going back to what the clinical findings and okay. Now if this was a mesenteric cyst.
Sorry,
if
sir.
this was a mesenteric cyst, we'll come to the management of GIST later on.
Okay.
Clinically, you thought it was a mesenteric cyst.
Yes.
And you have done an ultrasound. There was a bit of a confusion. You have done a CT scan.
Yes.
And CT scan says it is a mesenteric cyst.
Yes.
How will you proceed?
Sir, mesenteric cyst, the main modality of treatment for mesenteric cyst is surgical modality, sir. We would like to proceed with the surgery, sir.
Yes. Now, what type of surgery you do depends upon the type of the mesenteric cyst, isn't it?
Yes,
you have to, you have to speak that way. Okay. Yes. So, what are the types of the mesenteric cyst you know of?
Yes, sir. Mainly, main types of mesenteric cysts seen in the clinical setting are chylolymphatic cysts or the enteric cysts, sir. Chylolymphatic cysts usually arise.
What are the other types you know of?
Other types can be arising, the mesenteric cysts arising from the urogenital remnants, sir, or desmoid in origin, sir.
Dermoid, not desmoid, dermoid.
Dermoid.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah. So how will you manage them?
Yes. If it is a chylolymphatic cyst, sir, it will usually be arising more close to the root of the mesentery, sir, and it will be having its own vasculature, sir. So it is easier to just excise the cyst only do cyst excision, sir. There might not be need to compromise the mesenteric blood vessels, and there might not be need for resection anastomosis of the bowel, sir. But however, if it is arising if it is a enterogenous cyst, sir, it might be close to the bowel wall, sir. It usually arises as a diverticulum from the bowel wall, sir. So at that time, there might be need for resection and anastomosis of the involved segments, sir.
Okay.
For enterogenous, what we expect as an examiner, your answer of it is in close continuation of bowel wall. Along with that, you should be mentioning that the blood supply for the cyst will be sharing, not arising, will be sharing with the blood supply of that segment of the bowel. So hence that makes the necessity for resection. Fine. Okay.
Sir, in patients.
Okay.
Sir.
After this CT, you got the CT report. You discussed with the radiologist. Yes. Now, as a teacher, I will ask you, go back and examine the patient again. What is that you will be examining?
Sir, again, I will like to see the movement with the respiration. Again, I would like to confirm it, sir. And the movement, sir, mainly. How mobile it is, and the consistency also I would like to confirm again, sir.
It hardly matters. If you have a report in your hand, it is a tumor arising from the small intestine, possibility of GIST. Keeping that in mind, I will ask you to go
Yes.
back and examine the patient.
Yes, sir. I would like to see, reconfirm that if the patient is pale or not, sir. Anemia is one of the presentations of the GIST, sir.
Yeah, whether
patient
she
pale.
has anemia or a pallor.
Yes.
How does it matter?
Sir, it indicates the sir, one of the presentation of the GIST could be with bleeding manifestations, sir, or there could be chronic occult blood loss in cases of gastrointestinal stromal tumors, sir, which might present as anemia, sir. And one of the presentations of GIST itself is anemia, sir.
So how does it matter to you? Just with anemia, how, for you, for a treating clinician, how does it matter?
Yes. It could indicate that there might be ulceration into the mucosal surface, sir. And
For the management. He's asking for the management.
Management and predicting some prognostic
Yes,
points.
yes,
Predicting.
the chances of it turning out to be malignant are more, sir. So patients might need more extensive procedures, and as well as adjuvant therapy or neoadjuvant therapy with tyrosine kinase inhibitors.
Okay. Not necessarily these tumors are malignant, but if there is an ulceration, spontaneous, most of the times that ulceration is because of the mechanical effect, because of the mucosal ischemia. Sometimes it can be an infiltration into the luminal side and causing ulceration, and that ulceration will have a slow bleeding into the lumen, causing occult blood loss and anemia. So it is really important examination point in general physical examination whenever you are dealing with GIST. Okay, continue. What is that you would like to do next?
Sir, in this patient, ultrasound guided FNAC was done, sir. I would like to present that as well, sir. FNAC.
Shuram.
Yes.
Yeah, just on this, I don't know, you please highlight on this and let the students know.
So
Now, is this required at all?
Exactly.
No, sir. Any FNAC or biopsy is not mandatory in when there is a suspicion of a gastrointestinal stromal tumor, sir. It might be needed only when if there is a high suspicion of any other lesion, or if the size is very huge and we are planning to give a neoadjuvant therapy in order to aid for the medications which to be used at that time for immunohistochemistry and genetic studies, biopsy or FNAC might be needed, sir. But it does not add significant changes to the diagnosis as well, sir. Because
no, why I'm saying this, see in this patient, you have done all workup, you have done a CT scan. CT scan says it is arising from, the small bowel. It is mobile, probably it is resectable. So is this required in this patient?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Any harm in doing FNAC?
Sorry, sir?
Any harm you are doing by doing FNAC?
Yes, sir. The risks of FNAC, particularly in GIST, it could cause internal bleeding, sir. And the seedling is also a risk factor, sir, with FNAC and biopsy.
Correct.
Spillage and seedling.
Just for the postgraduates, whoever is attending this class, just to remind you people, in the examination, if it is asked, are you routinely advocate doing FNAC for a GIST? Please don't mention FNAC, okay? So the reason what she has given to be mentioned, but if something has been done like this in this particular case, you can substantiate, okay? So, but as a protocol, don't just mention in the examination FNAC as one of the diagnostic modality for Gabriel sir. Is it okay?
Exactly, sir, exactly. I just want to say that correct.
Fine.
What sir said is right. If as Varshita said, if it is inoperable, if it is a fixed mass, and if you still suspecting a GIST, yes, then probably a true cut biopsy or an open biopsy sometimes might be required to know what the type of tumor is, and then to do a immunohistochemistry, and then to go for chemotherapy and such things. But otherwise, routinely, there is no role for a FNAC or true cut biopsy in operable cases of GIST. Is that okay, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. Let her continue, sir.
So, no, there are some questions, Dr. Bhaskaran and others. Is there any role for diagnostic laparoscopy?
Sir, diagnostic laparoscopy, it can be done if it is a widespread disease to again obtain a biopsy, sir, or if there is any doubt with the diagnosis, sir. But since in this case it is already operable, it is an operable case, sir. So directly definitive management can be planned here, sir.
Correct. You're not achieving anything more by doing a diagnostic laparoscopy. This patient requires surgery. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So is PET-CT required?
Yes, sir. PET-CT has a role again in picking up the metastatic lesions in case of GIST, sir, or rarely in cases of follow-up, sir. If it is a inoperable patient and if we've started the patient on chemotherapy, as a follow-up, PET-CT can be used, sir. Otherwise, routinely, there is no role, sir.
Right. Dr. Gurshantappa and Gabriel, because everybody now wants PET-CT.
Yeah, she has mentioned rightly, it is mainly for a metastatic disease and follow-up of treated patients. Otherwise, for the primary diagnosis, don't mention and not advocated. And more so for this particular case, absolutely. This is more than enough what you have done for diagnosis. Fine. What do you want to do?
I would like to go ahead with the surgery of the patient, sir. A laparotomy surgery, and based on the intra-op findings, probably a resection anastomosis, including the mass.
You should say, don't say laparotomy. You would like to do an exploratory laparotomy. See, it means a lot. Don't say laparotomy. That everybody does. Okay.
Yes.
So in an examination, you will say, I would like to do an exploratory laparotomy. Yeah. So what is that you would like to do in an exploratory laparotomy?
In exploratory laparotomy.
And... sir is smiling.
No. better I should keep my video off.
illa, correct. No, this, everyday teaching, this is what is.
Correct.
You want, your students to be very specific.
Let her mention what is the difference between exploratory laparotomy and laparotomy.
Okay. In case of an exploratory laparotomy, we are opening the abdomen and we will be examining when the management is not previously planned, sir. It will be an intra-op management, and in case of a laparotomy, usually it is a planned surgery, sir, as to what to be done, and mainly incision, sir. In an exploratory laparotomy, we usually take a longer incision to avail much more visibility, sir.
Right.
In an exploratory laparotomy, the incision, I don't know whether it matters or not. In exploratory laparotomy, you will explore the whole of the abdomen and go to the tumor last.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So what you do is you explore the whole of the abdomen. You open the abdomen. You look at the liver. First, you look at the peritoneum. Okay. Whether there are any nodules. Then number two, you look at any free fluid is there. Then, you explore you go to the liver, see the liver, feel the liver. Okay. Yes. And then, you go to the mesentery, you go to the pelvis, you look all around, and then finally you go to the tumor. Okay. You explore the whole of the abdomen, including the large intestine, small intestine, large intestine, everything. Okay. Yes. Right. Okay. Yes. You have done exploratory laparotomy and you have found that this is the only tumor what is present over there. And it is infiltrating the mesentery.
Yes, sir. Sir, if it is...
what was laparotomy was done in this patient?
Yes, sir. It was done. Sir. It was done.
Okay. Then forget about the hypothetical things. Okay. What was that?
I would like to show the images of the same, sir.
Yeah.
These were the FNAC images, sir, which showed spindle cells, sir. Here is a spindle cell, the arrow mark showing, sir, in a single, and multiple spindle cells in a cluster, sir. FNAC came as likely to be gastrointestinal stromal tumor again, sir. These were the introp findings, sir. There was a mass here. We can see the mass, sir.
What was the incision port?
The incision was midline laparotomy incision, sir.
Midline means, was it midline or upper midline?
Midline.
What?
Midline incision. Midline incision. Yes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Be specific. When somebody is asked, when something is asked like this, be specific. Okay. Yes. So what were your findings? Yes, that was the midline, and then?
Here we can see this, sir. There was a mass arising from the mesenteric side, sir, of the jejunum. It was about 10 centimeters from the duodenojejunal junction, sir. DJ flexure, sir.
Okay.
I have more images of the same, sir. It is more so arising from the mesenteric side, sir. We can see the bowel wall was relatively normal, sir. There was, the lumen was also normal, sir. Probably why she did not have any other complaints, sir. This was the image, sir.
So it was 10 centimeter from the DJ flexure, right?
Yes. Sir.
That's why it was on the left side.
Yes. Yes.
Was it involving any vessels?
No, sir. Apart from the mesentery region there, nothing else was there, sir.
Okay. So what did you do?
Resection anastomosis was done, sir. With the surrounding, like jejunum around 5 centimeters on either side, resection anastomosis was done, sir.
Excision, yeah. Excision of the
excision
tumor along with the involved bubble. Okay.
Involved bubble with the primary end-to-end anastomosis of the jejunum was done.
Right.
If we have been asked to examine the specimen after doing this surgery, what are those things you will be examining?
Okay, sir. One again, sir, from where it is arising, sir, the shape.
No, you already specimen in your hand, this
Yes.
specimen.
Shape.
I'll ask you to, what are those points you will look for? Because you know the diagnosis, you know what surgery has been done, you need to examine the specimen.
Yes, sir. Like first specimen examination, one I would like to see the size of the specimen, sir. Then consistency of the specimen. Then cut section of the specimen examination should be done, sir. Then it is subjected for histopathological and
as a surgeon, see, sir is asking you, as a surgeon, what is important? See, these are all pathological things, what you have said. Okay.
Yes,
as a surgeon, what are you more interested in?
Like the margins, sir, mainly. How far the tumor mass is from the margins.
Okay.
And clinically, if it is surgically, if it is a R0 resection, like if there are margins appear, I would like to.
Anything else?
Then if there is any breach or rupture of the capsule which occurred, I would
Anything
like
else? Anything else?
I will give a forceps and a scissor to you and I will ask you to cut. Where is that you will be cutting this specimen?
This specimen, I would like to, this particular specimen, from the anti-mesenteric side, I can cut open it from here.
So you will cut the bowel or you will cut the tumor?
Cut the tumor, sir, from the mesenteric.
Oh, you want to cut the tumor. Okay. Somebody, Akhil has written lumen. See, we are talking about a gist, okay, arising from the bowel wall. And we want to know, is there any luminal erosion, which makes a different tumor histology. So you want to see, is there any luminal side erosion? So you need to cut the bowel wall. Okay, don't cut the tumor in the beginning itself. Cut the bowel and see the luminal side of the intestine. Is there any breach in the mucosa? Somebody had typed. Somebody had typed in between. So breach in the mucosa you should look for first. Okay. So again, that is very important histological finding in GIST to predict the aggressiveness of the tumor. Okay. So that is one point you should look for. Other parameters definitely may not matter because everything looks fine all around. And then pathologist will give us the detail. But for a surgeon, one is the edge, that is a margin, how far it is away. Second is capsule, is there it is uniform or is there any breach in the capsule? Third, is there any breach in the tumor itself, which is a very important factor for GIST. Yes. Break in the capsule on table, the recurrence chance rates are very high. So if it is there, you mentioned sometimes patients present with rupture of GIST. There is an entity called ruptured GIST, more common in gastric GIST. They present with hemoperitoneum. So if you are operated on such patients, it is better to note this point in our operative notes. Because in DNO, like as a virgin case, he presented with rupture. If you don't make this point in your operative notes, tomorrow if he comes out with a recurrence, people may comment that yes, it is an on-table rupture which has caused Steedling and the patient has recurred. Okay, so that point you should mention, is it intact or it is ruptured? Then the luminal side. So these are all the points on a gross specimen as a surgeon, as a treating clinician, we need to. Sir, Gabriel sir and Shirom, any points you want to add?
Yeah, other thing is lymph nodes. Okay, mesentery. Okay, mesenteric lymph nodes. Okay, so that's also, if it's a malignant gist. Okay, so these are prognostic. Okay, prognostic. So that's why. Okay, right. Yeah.
Shiram,
so what
you
was
would
the
like to
final
continue?
pathology report?
That's all, I think. No, whether the surgeon should do the dissection, and because some of the pathologists, they object whether we should do that gross and then send it, or should be done in the lab, in the pathology department. What is your practice in both your institutions?
Yeah, this is true with pathologists everywhere, and more so in the institutes, because in the institutes many times without our knowledge, postgraduates will be cutting the specimen. So we will have a lot of comments from pathology department. But whenever we have important cases like this, and by looking into the specimen, if it is going to add to your predicting the prognosis or the further treatment modality, definitely surgeon should look into the specimen. There is no harm in looking, but only thing, we should not like destroy all the specimen and give that destroyed specimen to the pathologist for the opinion, which is wrong.
Gabriel, what is your
practice?
I
think I agree with sir. I agree with sir, because it's important, because sometimes what happens, you might have dissected out 10 lymph nodes, and then sometimes the report might come as 2 lymph nodes. And it does happen in breast sometimes. So it is basically surgeon specific. Some surgeons, they do it themselves and send it to the pathologist. Sometimes the pathologist only gross. So it all depends. But then, as sir said, in this patient, yes, if you want to really know, in this patient, I think it's better that you open the lumen and see whether there is an ulceration. So you can always go back to the pathologist and talk to them, tell them, or even when the patient is referred to a medical oncologist, you can always tell them, because all these things matter. So that's what it is.
Also, when the postgraduate sometimes should go to the pathology and see how they do the cross sectioning, all those things, that is, they get a lot of knowledge out of it in the pathology department.
Yeah, that's also true, sir. That's also true. Yeah.
Okay, carry on, Harshita.
So now we have cut this, now, your professor was not there. And he has done a resection anastomosis and gone, and he says, cut the tumor and tell me what it is. He's gone for a cup of coffee. You cut open the tumor, you don't cut open the lumen, and you see something, caseous material coming out. What do you think it is?
Caseous material, presence of a caseous material, it could indicate necrosis, sir, within the tumor. One thing, sir.
Okay, it could be tumor necrosis. Anything else?
Yeah, if he says a caseous material, is that terminology is specific to some disease?
Tuberculosis, sir.
So how do we explain this tumor for tuberculosis?
It could be a mesenteric lymph nodal tuberculosis, sir, if it is to be a tuberculosis in this case.
Which has gone for caseation, like any other lymph node mass.
And you call up Dr. Gurushathappa and say, sir, this looks caseous and probably tuberculosis. And sir says, I require, the diagnosis within 3 to 4 hours, whether it's tuberculosis or not. What investigation will you do?
Sir, staining with AFP staining can be done, sir.
Negative.
Then like H&E staining, sir, mainly. If there are multiple inflammatory cells which are there, it could indicate.
Anything else you can do, something new.
CB-NAT or gene expert can be tried, sir. Within 3 to 6 hours,
Okay.
there will be reports.
Okay. Yes, correct. So gene expert can be done.
Dr. Gabriel, she did not mention that in the beginning, because your question was getting report in 4 to 6 hours. which may not happen in our institute. That is why our answer was not for the
No,
CB.
that's okay, sir. That's okay. No problem. No problem. No problem. What you said is right. AFB staining.
Yes.
That is how we go. That is
Yes.
how we go. Correct. What you said is correct. AFB staining. Then all those things are fine. Correct. That's why I said it's a negative. Correct. So then that's how we get answers from. Yeah, it's nice. Okay. So correct. You will do a gene expert, and then probably you will have the diagnosis of tuberculosis. And still you will wait for a paraffin section finally, to tell you that it is tuberculosis. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. How will you treat intestinal tuberculosis?
Intestinal tuberculosis, again with ATT only, sir. For 6 months, based on the normal regimen, category 1 regimen is started, sir. For 6 months it is given. Based on the response, it can be continued up to 9 months.
Based on the response, it can be continued up to
9 months. 9 months.
Okay. Yes. Now, what was the final histopathology report in this patient?
Sir, it is still awaited, sir. The surgery was done very recently, sir. It is still awaited.
Okay. Right. It comes as GIST.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to see anything in the histopathology report specifically?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
If it comes as a GIST, sir, I would particularly want to know the mitosis rate, sir, in case of a GIST, sir.
Yes. What does that tell you?
It is mainly a prognostic factor, sir, and risk assessment for malignancy potential of the GIST, sir. Presence of greater than 5 mitosis per 50 hyper fields increases the risk of tumor being malignant, sir. And also warrants starting of adjuvant chemotherapy as well, sir.
Okay.
Does size matters for this risk assessment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mainly for risk assessment, sir, size of the tumor, site of the tumor, and the mitosis figures of the tumor. Sir. Size greater than 5 centimeters or 5 to 10 centimeters again increases the risk of the tumor being malignant, sir, and the site as well, sir. Gastric tumors have better prognosis, sir, while small bowel tumors and large bowel or esophageal tumors have relatively poorer prognosis as compared to the gastric GIST.
Somebody has written 10 centimeters. Yeah, that's what it is. More 10 and 10. 10 centimeter and 10 mitotic figures per 50 high power fields.
Yes. Becomes highly likely to be a malignant.
Yeah, very highly likely to be. Okay. Fine.
What is the drug of choice?
So the drug of choice is imatinib mesylate, sir, tyrosine kinase inhibitor.
What does it? How does it act? What does it do?
Yes, sir. It is a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, sir. Mainly in GIST, there are mutations which are known to occur in multiple exons, mainly in the 4th chromosome, sir, giving positivity for CD117 and CD34, which will all eventually activate the tyrosine kinase chain, sir. So imatinib mesylate mainly inhibits this tyrosine kinase receptors, and it acts as it further halts the prognosis, sir. Like further mitosis will not occur because of the imatinib mesylate, sir. The main suggested is tyrosine kinase mechanism, sir, in GIST.
Varshita,
yes, sir.
Will you give, theoretically, will you give imatinib for all the cases of GIST, or will you do something after getting the histopathology that it is a GIST before you start on these drugs? Do you do something, some tests?
Yes, sir. Mainly immunohistochemistry and a few receptor studies, sir. Presence of CD117 and CD34 will help, will indicate that the tumor will probably respond to the imatinib therapy, sir.
It is exactly like CBNAT, what we do for tuberculosis, where it will tell us about rifampicin, okay, resistance. So it is exactly like that. If you can find out on immunohistochemistry these two receptors along with that DOG. So yeah, these three. If that immunohistochemistry is positive for all three, the response to imatinib is excellent. That will be the drug of choice. So if this percentage is very less with this immunohistochemistry tests, then the response is like unpredictable response, and you have to go for some other drugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Shivram, anything you would like to conclude, sir? Gabriel, sir,
Yeah.
shall we conclude?
Nothing, sir. Nothing. I
Yes,
think
sir.
everything has gone well. Dr. Shivram should conclude now.
Yes.
Varshita, is there any other better drug than imatinib?
Sir, there are other drugs which are being tried, sir, second line and third line. They are also tyrosine kinase inhibitors, sir. Sunitinib and regorafenib, sir. Other than that, darafenib and valifenib are being tried, sir.
Right. Good. There is also another thing called nilotinib.
Nilotinib, yes.
It should be more effective than the imatinib.
Yes.
I think overall you have done an excellent presentation, Dr. Varshita. I think straight away you can take final year MS exams.
Thank you, sir.
And
Correct, no?
Dr. Shivram will be your examiner.
I will not be. No, she did a very good job. Very knowledgeable. I think you have answered all the questions. You have not left anything.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. Dr. Gabriel, your comments?
Yeah. Yeah. Good, Varshita. Good. You have done well. Okay. Continue the same way. Okay. You will do well. All the best to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I want to
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
the
Dr. Shivram and Dr. Gurshant.
Yeah, there was
for,
one
you know,
question. I will take this because should not have the doubt. Is there any role for laparoscopy and do the laparoscopic surgery in this case?
In this case, it is a very difficult procedure, sir, because of the size, sir. But in cases of just laparoscopy and endoscopic procedures are being attempted, sir, based on the size, sir, mainly.
You're saying that, you know, person will not agree with that, huh?
Examiners
anyway.
won't. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Dr. Gurshantapa and Dr.
Yeah, thank you.
You have done wonders because there were 100 people and there are a lot of people waiting outside, not
Yeah.
able to join. So thank you very much. I think it was the most successful program in this teaching.
Thank
Let us
you.
continue like this. Thank you very much for all the cooperation.
Thank
Thank you
Thank
all
you,
the
sir.
postgraduates.
Thank
you.
Varshita, special thanks to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the opportunity, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Shivram. Dr.
Thank you, Gabriel, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Anytime, anytime.
No, I asked that question only because it was my professor HOD's favorite question. What is gastric peristalsis?
Oh,
Visible
okay,
gastric peristalsis.
Okay.
Excellent. We had a very good discussion. Thank you
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Good night.